Let's get into our first topic of the day. As global deaths from COVID-19 hits 170,000 globally, Vietnam's total is nil. Vietnam, a developing country that has a large land border with China and a population of 97 million people, has not reported a single death from the virus. As of today, the country has reported 268 infections of the disease associated with the new virus and more than 140 people making a full recovery. The reason why Vietnam has managed to keep the patients from death's door is down to a three-pronged government strategy. While these policy choices may not all be consistent with upholding civil liberties, they are proving essential to keep the pandemic at bay. Temperature screening and testing. Starting in February, anyone arriving at the airport in a major Vietnamese city had to go through Cucumber's body temperature screening and fill in the health self-declaration, stating their contact details and travel and their health history. These measures are now mandatory for everyone entering major cities and some provinces by land, too, and for everyone entering a government building or hospital. Anyone with a body temperature of or above 38 Celsius is taken to the nearest medical facility for more thorough testing. Those who are proven to have lied on their self-declaration or who resist declaration altogether can be criminally charged. Businesses involving banks, restaurants, and apartment complexes have also implemented their own screening policies. There have also been intensive testings across the country. Testing stations have been set up across cities in which all citizens can attend. Communities who live near confirmed cases, sometimes an entire street or village, are swiftly tested and placed in lockdown. Yes, this is true. Last week I reported on a city that the doctors treated somebody and therefore they exposed themselves, so they locked the city down. And on top of that, I have noted how stores, when you walk in, even myself, they will make you do a temperature check. But we are not really locked down. Our own research on our development of affordable test kits found that the March 5th in Vietnam had validated 3 different test kits, each costing less than $25 US and producing results within 90 minutes. These are being manufactured in Vietnam. The cost of testing matters everywhere, but it is particularly important in emerging economic countries like Vietnam, and these affordable test kits have helped the government's intensive testing strategy. Actually, I have another article, my next one of the day, actually, and it is about how the EU just gave the stamp of approval for Vietnam's test kits to be approved for sale there, so stay tuned for that. Targeted lockdown. This is the second prong attack. The second prong of Vietnam's approach is the quarantine and lockdown. Since mid-February, Vietnam people returning home from abroad have been quarantined for 14 days on arrival and tested for COVID-19. The same quarantine policy has been applied to foreigners coming to Vietnam. Anyone who has come into direct contact with an infected person, the details of whom are published, is encouraged to come forward for quarantine. If it's discovered someone has come into contact with someone who has been tested positive, they will be put into mandatory quarantine. Actually, this is true. Vietnam had been putting all these people, whether they flew in or got rounded up, they put them in actually where the soldier barracks. They told their own soldiers to sleep outside. We're using your barracks to quarantine these people. And I posted articles on that earlier as well. In March, Vietnam started the lockdown whole cities and specific areas in the city. Traveling between cities in the highly restricted in Da Nang in central Vietnam, anyone who is not a registered resident of the city but wishes to enter has to submit a 14-day quarantine. The government approach the facilities, which is a must finance themselves. Yes, and so, all right, keep moving on. Villagers of 10,000 people have been fenced off on account of a single cases. Bac Ma, a famous hospital of 3,000 people in Hanoi, which is also a leading COVID-19 treatment center, was even locked down in late March after one extremely contracted staff member tested positive. Businesses, both state and private, are closed down, and the tourism and airline industries are essentially frozen. All right, and consentment communications. From early January, the Vietnamese government has communicated widely to citizens about the seriousness of the coronavirus communications. It has been clear that the COVID-19, not just a bad flu, but something to be taken extremely seriously. So people are advised not to put themselves or others at risk. The government has been creative in its communications method. Every day, different parts of the Vietnamese government, from the Prime Minister to the Ministry of Health to the Ministry of Information and Communications and provincial governments, text citizens with information. I can contest to this. They keep sending me text messages similar to how you might get some weather text messages or some Amber missing child text message. But Vietnam, they've been doing it for this disease. Details on symptoms and protection measures are communicated via text mobile phones all over the country. The government has also partnered with messaging platforms such as Zalo to distribute updates. This has coupled with propaganda art across the country. Yes, we have some interesting art and newly designed stamps that further disseminate public health messages about the virus. Vietnam's cities are abundant with posters and reminders of citizens that their role is stopping the spread of the virus. At the same time, the government is relieving details of the COVID-19 or the rare cases have somebody who has escaped quarantine through the person's name is not made public. For example, 2 new report details. Okay, yeah. They had this one American actually. He got in and then he went all around and he was not following the law. So he actually spread it within 3 or 4 cities. And then they had this Vietnamese girl who came home from the EU, but they let her slide past without doing 14-day quarantine. She kind of walked right through everything, and thus she got many people sick. So they learned from their mistakes early on. Okay, even if some cases have not yet been detected by officials, there is no doubt that the Vietnamese approach has been effective in reducing the spread of the virus. Combine these measures means that Vietnam has not yet experienced any large-scale community outbreak, which has been devastating, like a Ho Chi Minh City with a population of 11 million and overwhelming the country's public health system. The three-pronged Vietnamese strategy may not be wholly consistent with the liberal ideas, but they are working. The healthcare system has the time to treat each patient and to, in doing so, keep the number low. Vietnam offers important lessons as COVID-19 is a step to spread further across the countries. All right, stay forward for my thoughts on this. So we just read an article about the 170,000 convoy deaths worldwide and 0 in Vietnam. Why? Here are my thoughts and questions for you. At times, do you think a one-party system can deliver safer and a faster plan of action than a multi-party system? I think myself, one problem with the multi-party system, they want to bicker and fight, sometimes postpone, but sometimes they want to be in the spotlight. So too much versus solving a problem. What do you think of this three-point attack to tackle the disease? Do you think it would work in your country? Yes, no, why? Vietnam never had a major lockdown. At most places had to stay in your city. So, yeah, like I couldn't say go from my town to say Ho Chi Minh. And yes, we had transport things closed down in schools, but that's about it. Going about your city, everything was pretty much open. By their enforcement, they saved lots of money by treating the sick. You see how, like in New York, California, and all these other countries, we need all these ventilators, we need this, we need that, we need to pay the medical staff, we got to pay this. By what they did in their treatment, they saved probably millions, if not billions of dollars. So is better prevention is it better to do good prevention, or is it okay to let things spiral out of control? You know, that kind of also relates to your own personal health. Stay healthy. How is your country handling this? What could they do better? Please leave your comments below. I would love to hear. Okay, we are moving on to our second article of the day. The Vietnamese Convoy 19 test kit received the EU seal of approval. Now, this was interesting to me for many reasons, but let's get into it. Vietnam domestically made the Convoy 19 test kits jointly developed by Viet A Corporation and the Military Medical University. Now, notice that they said they made it domestically, so they made their own medicine, unlike, say, the United States. All right, so Hanoi COVID-19 test kits produced in Vietnam have been approved by the UK and EU. The General Director of the corporation made the announcement on Tuesday regarding the joint effort between the company and the Military Medical University that debuted on March 5th. A kit comprising of 50 separate tests that can theoretically be used for the SARS or CoV-2 on 50 people meets all their criteria on the virus sensitivity specifically and accurately set by the World Health Organization. The full timescale for the test kit to produce a result of either negative or positive is a little over 2 hours. And it's going to cost between $17 and $25. The UK did leave the EU on January 31st, but they're still part of the pharmaceutical framework of the EU, so they will get kits. Viet said that after the receiving of the CE marking from the UK's Department of Health and Social Care in line with Directive 98/79/E of the European Parliament and of the Council, The vitro diagnostic medical devices that the company's UK-based partner, Redcliffe's Bioscience Holding Limited, were selected and authorized as a distributor to sell these products in UK, India, Mexico, and US, and certain European countries. It said 1 million tests would be supplied a month for these countries. All right, so I'm going to stop it there, but that's what I wanted to point out, that so Vietnam not only has had no deaths, but they've also taken steps to make something domestically and also sell them to the world. So what are your thoughts on this? What apps, what technology, or what medicines has your country made, or how are they handling this crisis? Please leave your comments below. I would like to hear from them. Okay, so let's move on to our next article of the day. And this will go into our next story as well. But have you ever thought about playing trivia of famous people? If so, here are some facts about Kim Jong Un. Okay, so personal. His date of birth, widely believed to be in his early 30s, though birth year is publicly unavailable. Who was his father? His father is Kim Jong Il. His mother, Ko Yong-hui. Who is he married to? Rai Sol-ju. Does he have any children? He does have Ju Ah and supposedly 2 others. And what education does he have? He has Kim Tu Su Hong Military Academy from 2002 to 2007. Other feats? He has his youngest son of the former North Korean leader Kim Jong-il. Okay, so here's his timeline. Wow, it's pretty big here. He was named North Korean National Defense Committee, all right, 2009. 2010, he was promoted to the 4-star general. October 2009, 2010, his eldest son, he was put on TV, and his father transferred his power to him in 2010. And then 2011, Kim Jong-il died at 69. You know, I was in Korea that day that Kim Jong-il died. And I walked into class that day because I was working. And I usually ask my students, what is today's gossip? What's big news? And so anyway, a student comes in, I don't ask, and he goes, teacher. I go, yes. He goes, we have big gossip today. He goes, good news and bad news. I go, oh, okay, what? He goes, good news, Kim Jong-il died. I go, great. Bad news, Kim Jong Un is now dictator. And so it was kind of funny. But I also had a different student on that same day. And he was actually sad. I asked him, why? What's wrong? He told me, teacher, I can cure HIV. I can be the president of the United States or whatever. But Kim Jong Un has achieved more in his life before the age of 30, and he will be more famous than me than I will ever be, no matter what I do. So he goes, I'm sad, but I'm happy for him. So that was a little interesting backstory on something. Okay, so then what did he do? He accompanies the body of Kim Jong-il in 2011 for the funeral. On December 31st, he assumes command of the North Korean army. Then, wow, we're moving on to 2012. He speaks before hundreds of troops and others in Pyongyang. Pyongyang, by the way, is the capital of North Korea. What's the capital of your country? On June 6th, he makes his second public speech speaking to thousands of children in Pyongyang on the 66th anniversary of Korean Children's Union. Okay. On June 2012, Kim gives the title of Marshal of the Army. All right, looks good. On 2013, he actually hosts the NBA basketball. Dennis Rodman. Yeah, Dennis Rodman was liked by him and his father, and he made many visits to North Korea in the past. On September 8th, 2013, he returned from his second trip to North Korean Rodman. All right. Then moving on to, wow, we're going to go all the way down to 2014. He disappeared from public view for 6 weeks, purportedly to have a cyst removed from his right ankle. And then going down to 2015, Kim executed 70 officials from coming to power. Yeah, if you remember, this was around the time that one of his officials did something he didn't like, so he literally took a rocket and he blew this guy up with a rocket. Okay, 2016, the Obama administration imposes sanctions on Kim and 10 other regime officials for their alleged human rights things. That's kind of funny that he would do human rights on North Korea, but it's okay even to this day for China to have those Uyghurs in their locked up and organs being sold, but U.S. is business as usual. All right, September 21st, 2016, South Korean Defense Minister announces their elite troops stand by. All right, to assist Kim if they feel threatened by North Korea. All right, moving on to 2017. During a televised address, Kim claimed North Korea is almost ready to begin testing international ballistic missiles. If you remember, this is when he was saying he could potentially hit California with that and made the news. 2017 in February, Kim Jong Un dies after being poisoned. So remember, he killed his brother. Kim Jong Un was his brother, who the people played a prank on him at the airport. They put this mask on his face. He smelled it, and he almost died instantly. His brother still has a son alive in either Singapore or Malaysia, though. So, okay. Moving on to September 2017, Donald Trump threatens to totally destroy North Korea if the United States is forced to defend itself. 2018 extends a formal invitation to President Moon Jae-hee, and yes, they kind of shook hands back then. And then in 2018 March, he actually announced that he would meet President Trump. Okay, moving on. During April, he did a long summit all right. Then we're moving on to June 12, 2018. He actually met President Trump. Have you met President Trump or any president? For 5 hours in Singapore for the first time, the United States and North Korea have met. That was good. And then in 2018, he meets with Moon in Pyongyang, the third summit. And this is around the time that they were going to do the Olympics together. Moving on to 2019, Kim and the Russian Vladimir Putin hold their first ever summit. Wow, he's getting around. And the last one we have is on June 30th, 2019. Kim greets Trump at the border. Yes, remember President Trump went to the DMZ. All right, I'm going to stop there because I want to get, well, I'm not going to stop. I'm just going to show you the next story. Seoul says no sign of Kim Jong Un, who is gravely ill. All right. So this is why I did the facts on him, because South Korea on Tuesday played down reports that North Korean leader Kim Jong Un fallen seriously ill after surgery, saying nothing in particular signaled Kim's failing health or indicated an emergency in the reclusive country. So far, we haven't come across any unusual signs in North Korea, said Kang Min-sik, spokesperson for Chung Woo-di, in a special message to reporters sent hours after CNN said Kim was in critical condition following a surgery, citing an unidentified U.S. official. I personally do not ever believe CNN, but that's why I gave you guys a Korean newspaper, because I believe international newspapers far more than anything CNN says. Okay, so speculation over Kim's health started mounting when he was absent from the ceremonial mark of the birthday of the country's founder, as well as his grandfather Kim Il Sung. On April 15th, the 36-year-old leader had never missed the event since coming to power in 2012. Actually, this is semi-important. It's like their national, I don't know, like 4th of July or Freedom Day. In this case, though, even his father, Kim Jong Il, and every year he would visit this day, and he'd visit the grave. So it is very ceremonial. It is a very important holiday for their country. Otherwise, I wouldn't believe this report at all. So Kim's last public appearance came 4 days earlier on April 11th when the ruling party convened a Politburo meeting. Then the day on the 12th, Kim had reportedly visited an airbase to observe drills by fighter jets, announced that the Korean Central News Agency. 2 days later, on April 14th, Pyongyang test-fired multiple short-range anti-ship cruise missiles and flew Songhul jets. Whether Kim was there to guide the military exercise was unclear. This was the first time that Kim had gone missing. Well, it was not the first time. Remember, he was gone for 6 weeks, like they said, 40 days earlier. We just did that in the facts. China and North Korea, close allies, said that it was unlikely that Kim had fallen into the grave health condition. Yes, I don't think so either. One thing I did not report on yesterday, but it was global news. There were satellite images of Chinese and North Korean boats in the ocean that North Korea was giving coal to China. They were trading it through the boats in the ocean to avoid tariffs and sanctions. The official of the Chinese Communist Party International Liaison Department in charge of the communication with North Korea told Reuters that the source did not believe that leader Kim was gravely ill. Again, I don't believe it either. Japanese Foreign Minister Toko Komo was more restrained, saying it was not the time to discuss the matter, despite a number of developing stories about Kim's health. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. What do you think? Do you think he's actually missing? Do you think he's dead? And if he died, what do you think will happen? Because his sons are like little kids. So it would be very unlikely that they would take over as the ruler of the party. Would there be reunification? Would there be an all-out war? Would the country be in chaos without a strong leader? Please leave your thoughts below. I would really be interested to hear from you. But moving on to more international news today. This one takes place with from the Malaysia newspaper. And if you have been following the news, you might know like a week ago, first, China sunk a fishing boat in Vietnam. Second, the Philippines did sovereignty with Vietnam over recognizing the international waters. Then China went into Philippines waters. Then a few days ago, China went into Malaysia waters. So China, and they've also done Taiwan waters. And then as for the U.S., you know that their destroyers or aircraft were sick, so they kind of like they're disabled. They're in Japan and Guam at the moment. So that brings us up to today. Today, 2 US warships in South China Sea amid the China-Malaysian standoff. Kuala Lumpur, April 21st. 2 US warships are operating in the South China Sea, the Navy said on Tuesday, with 3 regional security sources saying there were near an area of a standoff between China and Malaysia. The Haixing Dingxi 8, a Chinese government research ship, was spotted last week conducting a survey close to the exploration vessel operated by a Malaysian state oil company, Petronas, months after it undertook a similar patrol off Vietnam. The incident prompted the United States to call on China to stop bullying behavior in the disputed waters, citing concerns over Beijing's provocative actions toward offshore oil and gas developments there. The U.S. Department has said China was taking advantage of other regions focusing on the coronavirus pandemic. Personally, I think what China did was an act of war. They purposely created the virus so other nations could not protect their own assets. Hence, China could take care of internal and external objectives or goals. The USS America Ambitious Assault Ship and the USS Bunker Hill, a guided missile cruiser, have been deployed and were operating in the South China Sea in the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, spokeswoman Nicole said. Though our continued operation presents in the South China Sea, we are working to promote freedom of navigation and overflight and the international principles that underpin security and prosperity for the Indo-Pacific. Okay. The U.S. supports the efforts of all our allies and partners to determine their own economic interest. Rear Admiral, the commander of the USS Armada Explosionary Strike Group, told Reuters that his forces had interacted with the Chinese naval forces in the South China Sea this week. All of our interactions continued to be safe and professional with them, Collar said in a telephone interview. Alright, so I kind of wanted to stop there because I just wanted to bring it up. Because like it says here, the United States has accused China of taking advantage of the pandemic. We already know that. So I just want to bring this up, that this is the current status of an update of what's going on in the waters of the China Sea or whatever. So what do you think? Do you think all these countries deserve to have their sovereignty, whether it's Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, Taiwan, or should we just hand it all over to China? Please leave your comments below. This will be our last international news article of the day. China wants authoritarianism as a democracy alternative, the Master states. And so let's read a little bit of it. This is really a long article, but I think it's pretty reasonable. So let's get into this. China has become a threat to the world due to its communist leaders who are promoting a closed authoritarian model as an alternative to other democratic governments and free market economics, said McMaster, former U.S. States National Security Advisor. Yeah, well, many states with their lockdown laws right now, they kind of are doing the same thing China does. So, since the days of Deng Xiaoping, the late 1970s, The assumptions that have governed the American approach to its relationship with China were that the mainland would open its markets and privatize its economy after being welcomed into the international political and economical order. As the country became more prosperous, the Chinese government would respect the rights of its people and liberalize politically. But McMaster, who served under U.S. President Donald Trump until 2018, said in the article that those assumptions were also proven wrong. Well, assumptions are never fact. That's what America hoped and wanted, because America wanted money for corporate America. But China never promised anything. China would go, keep bringing the money in, you want cheap labor? So, you want to give us free technology? So, America, corporate greed, and politicians kind of did this to themselves. The Chinese Communist Party is not the only strengthening an internal system that sustains human freedom and extends its authoritarianism control. It is also exporting that model and leading its development of new rules and a new international order that would make the world less free and less safe from the formal U.S. official rule. Well, yes, but again, the U.S. is doing many of the same things. I mean, closing down all businesses, locking people in their houses. Isn't that what they're doing in China and America? China's effort to extend its influence is obvious in the militarization of man-made islands in the South China Sea and the development of military capabilities near Taiwan and in the EC. But the integration nature of the Chinese Communist Party's military and economic strategies, which make it particularly dangerous to the United States and other free and open society, he added. Further, during our state visit, Xi and his advisors relied heavily on historical convoy that intended messages that emphasized certain historical subjects. Yeah, the Communist Party leaders believe that they have a narrow window of strategic opportunity to strengthen their rule and revise the international order in their favor. But before China's economy sours, before the population grows old, before other countries realize that their party is pursuing national rejuvenation and at their expenses, and before unanticipated events such as the coronavirus pandemic expose the vulnerabilities and party created in the race to surpass the United States and realize the China dream. China's overall strategy relies on the cooperation and cohesion at home and abroad, as well as concealing the nature of Chinese true intentions. Which again, China always knew its intentions and they had no obligation to play by your rules or tell you. America, no one tells you their objectives or secrets if they don't want. What makes this strategy potent and dangerous is the integrated nature of the party's efforts across the government, industry, academia, and military, and their officials stressed. As Chinese pursues its strategy of cooperation, cohesion, and concealment, its authoritarian interventions have become ambiguous. Inside China, the party's tolerance for free expression and dissent is mildly, to put it mildly. The party's tightening of grips over Hong Kong, unveiling repressive and mandative policies in Tibet, forcibly removing corpses from the tombs, crosses from the tops of churches, buildings, and even demanding some buildings are some of the examples which the former US NSA cited in his article to show growing authoritarianism practices of China. Well, if I recall right, even in the EU, Ireland, and a few other countries, now the Muslims have demanded the churches take down the crosses and Jesus statues, and those governments going, okay. So not only political, but also the Belt and Road Initiative calls for the $1 trillion in new infrastructure investments across the Indo-Pacific region and beyond. But for developing countries with fragile economics, the projects are setting up ruthless debt traps. When some countries are unable to service their loans, China trades debt equity to gain control of their ports, airports, dams, power plants, and communication networks. Yeah, I agree. That's going on, and it sucks. But the country has got along fine without China doing that because it's their choice to expand fast and to accept China's help. It's not like the US offered help anyway. But again, let's keep going. As of 2008, the risk of debt distance was growing in 23 countries with the Belt and Road financing, 8 poor countries with Belt and Road financing. All right, and these were Pakistan, Djibouti, Mauritius, Laos, Mongolia, Montenegro. I can't even pronounce these other ones. They already have unsustainable debt levels. Yeah, there's a lot to do. So does the US. Also, Made in China 2025 is designed to help China become largely independent scientific technological power. To achieve that goal, the parties creating high-tech monopolies inside China and stifling foreign companies of their intellectual property by means of theft, forced technology transfer. Now that again is false. Yes, it is true China does send spies, across the globe to universities and such, but it's either A, those citizens in those countries that are freely giving it to those Chinese people, or they are taking bribes for it, or in many cases, they're opening factories in China or a Chinese-owned place, and they're handing over their IP technology, whether it's Google, Facebook, Microsoft. Like Google's making a huge firewall just for China, like Firewall 2.0. Microsoft was making the social credit store, your social credit store app just for China. So my point is, while this article was trying to knock China down, and also track the U.S. wants the money, the corporations want their money, and the U.S. for human rights does the same thing China does. What about the Freedom Act? What about the Independence Act? What about locking people in their house right now? America does the same thing China does. They just try to hide it or deny it. Okay, so that's my point on all this, though. So what about you? I do agree they're spreading authoritarianism, but even in the U.S., the news reporters are saying, lock us down longer, lock us in longer, take away our rights. We are happy. Yes, yes. The media is all across from New York, California, Washington, Oregon. They're all asking, yes, please do it, please do it. If the U.S. wants independence, then they should fight for it. If they want to have healthy neighbors, they should build better relationships that extend beyond just handing out free printed money. Those are my thoughts. So what do you think about authoritarianism versus democracy? Which is better for you? And what can we do to stop the slow of it or to promote your form of government? Please leave your thoughts below.